What's up, guys? Dr. Feelgood here, back again. Only this time, it's another philosophy. Now, I know what you're thinking. It's been a very long time since I did one of these. I never planned on stopping, but life. And I made a promise to a good friend of mine, Tig, aka Liger. And shout out to him and his open mic podcast, as well as his side chat podcast. I've been on them a few times, not as much as I should have been, but I plan on attending more so be on the lookout for there. You're going to find more of my videos there as well. And today's topic was actually brought up, I think maybe a couple of weeks ago. Now, I'm not sure if this was my friend's post or they just basically reposted something else, but shout out to my friend Kimber. However, the question was, should couples have joint accounts? Now, I think the post was referring to bank accounts, but to me, joint accounts can also apply to credit cards, so I'm going to tie them all together. And believe it or not, I am on both sides. However, I do believe it depends on various factors about the individuals as well as the dynamic of the relationship. Let me explain. Now keep in mind, none of this is rehearsed. This is all off the dome, okay? I prefer to do it this way. It's more authentic to me. Anyway, I'm a person that has done joint accounts for a very long time. I really have. I've almost always in relationships had joint accounts. I prefer joint accounts. Just makes things easier. However, I can also say that due to recent events in my life and changing circumstances, that separate accounts probably would have been more beneficial to the relationship as well as to me individually. And I'll explain further. Stay with me. Everybody is different. Everybody has their own quirks. Everybody has their own vices, their muses, right? And also, everybody has their own income, more or less. And by that, I mean, hey, one person may make $80,000 a year. The other person may make $60,000 a year, right? Nothing's wrong with that. Not belittling anyone. But just because you are a couple, does that mean you're entitled to $10,000 of the other person's money to have some type of parity so things can be equal? Maybe, maybe not. Now, here's the way I look at things. Let's say a relationship. I won't say this has to be a marriage or an engagement. Let's just say a serious relationship, right? Let's say person A has a vice. That vice can be gambling. It could be collectibles. It could be activities such as going to a bar, drinking, or a strip club, whatever it may be, right? We all have vices. Let's say this particular vice costs them around $200 a week. Regardless of how much money they make, let's just keep in mind $200 a week, right? This is their vice, their personal vice. Let's say person B has a vice that costs them $100 a week. So person A, the vice is $200 a week. Person B, their vice is $100 a week. Let's say person B is someone that has to, it can be a mani-pedi or whatever, or, haircut, whatever. But let's say these are things they like, $100 a week. It's not bad. Now check this out. Let's say person A with the $200 a week vice, after paying an equal portion, their half of said bills and responsibilities, every week they only have left over $150 of money to spend towards said vice. While person B with their $100 a week per week vice, let's say after they do give their half of the bills and responsibilities, they have $200 left over. Right? Is it fair for person A to eat into person B's money for their own personal vice? I think not. That's not fair. So in that particular scenario, I think it is best for this particular couple to have separate accounts. Now, I do still believe, now this is going forward, this is for me personally, I do believe that couples should have a joint account. A joint account. Focus on that. What I mean by that is they should each have their own separate personal accounts. Money only they have access to. But they should also have a joint account. Both their names are on it, where they put in their money together, each equally, paying half of the responsibilities and bills they have in their lives. So let's say your monthly responsibilities in your household come to $2,000 a month. Person A makes $60,000 a year. Person B makes $80,000 a year. They each put in $1,000 into this joint account. No, we're not going to portion it due to income. You each put in $1,000 a year. I'm sorry, you put $1,000 each into this account, and you use that to pay the bills. That way it's half and half, or called going Dutch, if you will. You add all your responsibilities and expenses together for the household, mind you, not your vices. And you each put half. That's fair. And then, of course, outside of that, you each have your own personal accounts in which you spend money how you please. Spend, save, or invest. See, to me, that is probably the most ideal way to go about it. Me personally, I've had joint accounts and strictly joint accounts. Let me tell you what can happen when you have joint accounts, though, and there's no regulation, so to speak. Somebody's going to always end up spending more than they should, and therefore dipping into the other person's portion or side of the finances. Now, typically, this is not something that they're aware of they're doing. When you have joint accounts, you share everything, it starts to all bleed in together. So even though you make less, you're spending as though you make more, because to you, my money is your money is my money, it's all the household money, so I can just spend how I want. Yes and no. That creates a problem, because what if you spend too much and the other person has plans with that money to some extent that doesn't supersede or exceed their own income? See, when your spending exceeds your personal income, that becomes a problem, because then you're expecting the significant other to compensate, and that's not cool. Not that they should not compensate or be willing to, but you shouldn't have that expectation either. Not unless it's really a need. My personal opinion, of course. Now, I do think it's a benefit to having joint accounts, which is it establishes trust. And you can learn, it really does teach you about the other person's spending habits because you see it firsthand. You can see all the activity. With separate accounts, you can't see their spending habits. You can see your spending habits. You can ask about their spending habits so you can see what they purchase, but you don't really have the full picture. And nor do you need it because whatever they do with it it's their money. It's their side of things. It doesn't really concern you. So long as they take care of their half of things, nothing else matters. And I can fully agree with that. So there's a perk to joint accounts. It can show you the other person's spending habits. The downside is their spending habits can bleed over their own income and into yours unknowingly. See, when you have $60,000 and $80,000 all run into an account per year, that's $140,000. If you're not balancing the checkbook and you're not watching who makes what purchases, you can't really tell when the person spent their portion of the income and started spending yours. That's almost impossible to monitor. There's also, now earlier I said that joint accounts establish trust, but the con is you will see a person's spending habits and therefore learning more about them. But when it comes to separate accounts and strictly separate accounts, they don't convey trust. Inherently, it conveys a lack of trust. Nothing's wrong with that, especially in the very beginning. Nothing's wrong with that. Just because you care about a person and you're with them romantically does not mean you have to trust them with your finances. And that's perfectly fine. So for those couples out there that have separate accounts and no joint account whatsoever, no, I'm not throwing any shade towards you. Because if you work hard for your dollar, you have the right to protect your hard-earned money. Me personally, I realize that's probably the better way for me to go due to recent circumstances. I won't get into that, but there's probably a better way for me to go. But back to the point. There's pros and cons to both. Ideally, as I mentioned earlier, I think the best thing for any couple to do, the best thing overall, is to have both their own separate accounts and a joint account, strictly for taking care of responsibilities. That's it. They both put in half. Regardless of their individual salaries, you put together all the necessities, the necessary responsibilities. You total those up, and then you both equally put in half. And then from there, the way you spend, you're only spending your money out of your own account. So if you're a woman, you get your hair and nails done every week, and it costs $200 for them both, then that's your money. That no one else, anyone you're involved with, can't tell you how to spend your money, because at the end of the day, it's your money. Now they can make suggestions, maybe help you save a little bit, but even still, they can't really bitch or complain because it's your money. You're not touching theirs. Plain and simple. It really is the best of both worlds. So overall, that's my opinion. It depends on the dynamic of the relationship and the, should I say, hobbies of each individual. Now, some people like myself, at least prior to recent events, I didn't really care how a person spent because I like to spoil. So that wasn't an issue for me. But when someone takes advantage of you and things were joint, you start to rethink things. And that's where I'm at personally. But as I say, I won't get into that. But overall, my opinion, I think any couple should have individual accounts and a joint account, strictly for splitting things down the middle. necessities, household expenses, such as utilities, your phone, the mortgage or rent, things like that. No, we're not going to split our vices down the middle, because your vice is $1,000 a month, and it's mine $200. I'm not going to compensate for that. That's unfair. That's unfair. I don't care if I do make more. That's not going to happen. That's not fair. However, I think they should have a joint account at the very least. And this applies to credit cards too. As I say, I'm roping it all in. Have your individual credit cards. You spend how you want to spend, because your debt that you rack up is your debt. Now, if you're married, they may combine their debt together, but at the same time, if that credit card only has your name on it, only your name, you're the only authorized user for that card, guess what? However that card reports, that's on you. Now, having a joint credit card, less necessary than a joint bank account, but I don't see any issue with that. But keep in mind, once you joint, the only way to unjoin in most cases, should something go awry, is to completely cancel that credit card. And that's going to not only impact your credit negatively, but at the same time, you got to figure out who spent more on that card, you or them. And people don't tend to be honest about that. Just saying. Anyway, let me know what you guys think about this in the comments. Try not to argue about it. There's really no right or wrong. This is all just my opinion and or my preference. I'm not dogging anybody out, but I really and genuinely want to hear the educated responses and questions and comments of people. Educated. All right? I'm not trying to create arguments here. I don't want anyone attacking anyone else. Just give your honest opinion. That's it. But let me know what you guys think. And until the next philosophy, peace.